The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by the UMass Amherst School of Public Policy, offering in-person and online graduate programs in public policy and data analytics. Admissions now open at umass.edu/SPP.
Welcome to the Fabulous 413. I'm Police Smith.
And I'm Monty Belmonte. Later in the show, a melding of cultures and communities on stage at Jacob's Pillow as we speak with the choreographer and dancers from this weekend's Rowdy's in Love.
And speaking of community, we'll get a tour of the facilities at Amherst Media and learn how you can both celebrate and contribute towards their efforts at their gala on Saturday, May 2nd.
But first, the government.
David Byrne told me not to worry about it while he was in Talking Heads.
That was 40 years ago, and the landscape is much different now.
Alas.
Did you go see King Charles in the joint session of Congress?
I saw the end of it. I was there for like the last 15, 20 minutes. We had a rules committee meeting because they were obliterating SNAP, so I had to be at that. And then I was there for most of the speech.
So much for no King's Day, I guess, then, huh?
Yeah,
Some King's Day.
My mother wanted me to ask him, why he left Diana. I was like, okay, if I have a chance, I'll ask, but I didn't, so.
That's like the kind of things people ask me to ask you.
Yeah.
Goodbye, England's rose.
Time for another McGoverning with McGovern session, our weekly chat with U.S. Congressman from the 2nd Congressional District of Massachusetts, Congressman Jim McGovern. Let's start with some King's Day and King Charles' speech to the joint session of Congress. I believe it's the only second time that's happened. His mother did it before him. And if you look at the text of the speeches, it's almost like our president's introduction to him would be what you think a king might say about bloodlines and legacy versus what King Charles focused on, which was the Magna Carta, which puts limits on authoritarian figures like kings himself. What was your takeaway from that speech?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting, what he said in his speech. And it was a reminder that, and maybe it was a warning to us that, we have to pay attention to our democracy, that we have to pay attention to the separation of powers. And, we have to worry about things like authoritarianism. I thought that was a welcome message, even if it was coming from a king. And I think members of Congress need to hear that. And if the president was watching, I hope he heard it as well. But I thought he did a good job. And I thought he talked also about the environment, the importance of the environment, which is something that every time you raise in this current Congress, you get scowled at. But people came together and applauded him. So I appreciated that as well, because climate change is real. Our environment is in jeopardy. And that's not just a U.S. problem, it's a global problem.
Last weekend was the White House press correspondents' dinner, and there was yet another assassination attempt on the life of President Donald Trump. It has been pinned on Democratic rhetoric by people on the other side of the aisle, on the Republican side of the aisle, including the White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt. Talk about your take on what went on at the White House press correspondents' dinner and whether or not rhetoric, including, the president himself, the White House has listed Senator Elizabeth Warren from Massachusetts, Senator Ed Markey from Massachusetts, and Representative Ayanna Pressley, blaming them specifically for the language that they've used in regards to leading to political violence.
Well, first of all, political violence is unacceptable in a democracy, period. Everybody agrees with that. That should go without saying. But to use this as an opportunity to attack free speech, I think is pretty sad. They should look in the mirror if they want to talk about heated rhetoric. The things that this president has said, the threats that he has made, the personal threats that he has made, I find quite disturbing. But I'm not saying that the president doesn't have the right to say what's on his mind. And they went after Jimmy Kimmel for a joke that happened before all this happened. They use this as an opportunity to go after who they believe are their political adversaries. And again, you're going back to the King's speech when he talks about checks and balances and not taking for granted the rights and the freedoms that we have. This administration uses every opportunity to try to move more and more toward what we would consider an authoritarian model. And again, I find that really disturbing. This president is screwing over my constituents. He's advocating for policies that's increasing hunger in this country, making life more expensive. This war in Iran, I think, is illegal as well as costly. And I have an obligation to speak out against those things because they're hurting the people I represent. And to do anything less than that I would not be doing my job.
Well, speaking of the war in Iran, the 60-day time limit that presidents usually have without authorization from Congress to do these military actions will wrap up today or tomorrow. Meanwhile, Pete Hegseth, the so-called self-declared Secretary of War, testified before Congress Were you part of that testimony, and what were your impressions of the Hegseth testimonial, where he himself said that it's Democrats who are an obstacle to peace and tried to play patriotic in regards to what's going on in Iran?
Yeah, I mean, he's pathetic. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. He should not be in that job. He's like self-obsessed, and he doesn't even know how much the war costs. By the way, it's over $1 billion a day, and he's trying to lowball it yesterday in the hearing. So, look, I have no respect for him, and I think he is a dangerous man to be in that position. And I don't know whether he lasts for the full Trump administration, but he is doing a job that, quite frankly, is a disservice to the American people. We have spent, we're getting close to $70 billion on this war. I mean, we got people who can't afford health care. We have roads and bridges that are falling apart. We're told, we can't spend any money on that. But a blank check for a war that Congress didn't authorize and that is unnecessary. They're talking about the price of gas. It's so high. That's why we got to do this. Well, don't forget, the Strait of Hormuz was open before Trump launched this war. And Iran now has been empowered. He has enhanced Iran's influence in the world, which is kind of the exact opposite of what he said he wanted to do. This has nothing to do with Iran's nuclear program, which, was in check. And the president, when he bombed Iran a year ago, said he obliterated it. So I don't understand the end game here. How does this end? But I do know that every single day we're doing this, we not only risk the lives of our troops, but we are draining essential resources from our country that could help our people here.
Meanwhile, in Northampton, in your district, there were 8 of 50 protesters from demilitarized Western Mass who regularly ask questions on this segment on the show, arrested in Pocky Whelan's honor in front of L3 Harris yesterday. So they, similar mission, different way of going about it, wanting to get the U.S. out of the Middle East. L3 Harris, a $1 billion defense contractor that works with both the Israeli military and U.S. Customs Enforcement, and I believe makes parts for nuclear submarines as well. So that just happened in your district. Speaking with U.S. Congressman Jim McGovern, McGoverning with McGovern, another interesting item in another branch of the government with which you are employed is the Voting Rights Act, now a dead letter, according to the latest Supreme Court decision, according to the more left-leaning justices on the Supreme Court. That's a headline from Politico. The Supreme Court's 6-3 decision in Louisiana versus Calais, a case challenging the drawing of a second majority black district in the state, left the civil rights law on the books, but the racial protections in the law were weakened by this Supreme Court decision, according to Politico and some of the liberal justices on the Supreme Court. What's your take on that case and what implications it may have when it comes time to vote in November?
Well, I've always said elections do matter. And here's an example. Because of people who are in power in Congress, you end up with a Supreme Court that is like the one we have right now, that not only makes lousy decisions that basically endanger the lives and well-being of people in this country, but now they're going in and trying to reverse the Voting Rights Act, basically saying, we should be a colorblind society. Well, we're not a colorblind society, I hate to tell them. Racial discrimination is still alive and well all throughout this country, and some of the states where the Voting Rights Act has had the greatest impact are the states that have had the worst record in terms of race and discrimination. They're going to do everything they can to try to redraw districts. I mean, primaries are happening in weeks, so I'm not sure how all this is going to work out. But the bottom line is they're doing this for one reason. It's not about making this country better or making this country colorblind, as they say. This is about power. This is about the President of the United States basically instructing his allies on the Supreme Court to do everything possible to make sure that he cannot lose, that his party cannot lose in the midterm elections. This is about holding on to power. That's what this is about. So he can pursue policies that benefit his buddies and his friends and his family at the expense of everybody else. So, November is key here. People need to show up, and I hope that happens.
Well, for further reading on this, I recommend Haydenville author David Daly's 2 books. He has a book called Rat Bleeped about redistricting and gerrymandering in general, and then a newer book called Anti-Democratic, which talks about the Roberts Court and how this has been the objective all along. It reads like a playbook at this point, and you can also hear him on previous podcasts of this show.
I'm ashamed. I really am. I'm ashamed. We're going to vote on a farm bill today that not only screws over people who are on SNAP, but get this, provides liability protection to pesticide companies and chemical companies. And people say, why would that happen? Well, I said this in the Rules Committee the other day, follow the money. I mean, the chairman of the Agriculture Committee gets generous donations from those interests. So no one should be surprised that there's liability protection in the Farm Bill. I mean, if Roundup and all these pesticides were so safe, why the hell would they need liability protection? The bottom line is we have organizations all over the United States. We have the World Health Organization. They're saying that the pesticides and chemicals that are used by a lot of our farmers all throughout this country are a danger to farm workers and maybe even a danger to those who ingest the food that these chemicals are sprayed on. We should care about this stuff. And instead of caring about it, they're providing liability protection to the people who make this.
Is that farm bill going to pass the House today? I know the vote is today in your estimation or with the math that has been done. Is it going to pass?
I think it may very well pass, but there's all kinds of problems, and we have a few tricks up our sleeves to try to make sure it doesn't get sent over to the Senate. This is a lousy farm bill. It provides no new money for farmers. It devastates the SNAP program. It provides protections to chemical companies. I mean, it's gross. And I'm going to be honest with you, Republicans will vote for it because they're being ordered to vote for it. And we have some Democrats, a handful of Democrats, I'm sure will vote for it. And I'm very disappointed in them. But corporate agriculture has kind of weighed in on their behalf. And so, again, follow the money.
There were two other big legislative agenda items that Speaker Mike Johnson in the House had to navigate through this week. One was the FISA court, the government spy powers that were set to expire today. That did pass the House, but looks like it might stall in the Senate. Is that your estimation on that?
Yeah. I mean, I tried to, in the Rules Committee, to make an amendment that would put in place a warrant requirement over provisions, Section 702, that would, again, require a warrant if the administration wanted to search material that had already been gathered, but it might have been gathered on somebody else, but you may have been mentioned. So, we wanted to say if they go after you, they need to get a warrant from a judge to justify that. And again, Republicans blocked that in the Rules Committee. So I think this is a bad FISA bill. I mean, we've already learned that the administration did an investigation into a reporter who did a story, a New York Times reporter, who did a story on Kash Patel's girlfriend. And as a result of that, they launched this inquiry, again, without a warrant. I don't trust this administration. They go after their political opponents and adversaries. And again, this is the United States of America. This is not Russia. And there needs to be checks and balances in place.
One other big thing that went through the House has to do with funding immigration, and that may pass the Senate today. Does that look like DHS or the immigration money would be passed in the Senate today?
So it's unclear. I mean, I'm fine with funding DHS minus ICE and CBP. These agencies are not following the law. I don't want to fund them. At a minimum, there needs to be some major reforms. So we're trying to see whether we can get movement on funding everything else, like FEMA. I'm hoping we can pull that off. But again, the administration is not only working Republicans, but working Democrats as well.
On Saturday, I'll be at an event as an MC where you're going to receive an award, the Gene Haggerty Award for Community Service from Amherst Media, which is the public access television station and more for the town of Amherst. They'll be on our show later today to talk about some of the work that they do. Talk about me receiving that award.
I'm humbled and I'm honored and I'm looking forward to being there. But I appreciate all that they do, and they're an important asset to this community. They encourage community service, and that's something we all should be dedicated to. And so I'm looking forward to it, and it should be a fun night.
Before I let you go, what's giving you hope this week, Congressman McGovern?
Well, I mean, a lot of things. In spite of all the crap that's going on. But I actually had a really good Zoom call last night with a group of people from around the state on Medicare for All and what we could do at the state level to kind of prepare for the day where we get a federal government that would be willing to, help provide wind at the back of those who want a single-payer healthcare system. Look, our healthcare system is broken. It's too for-profit oriented. It doesn't focus in on prevention. It just focuses more on what happens when you're terribly, terribly sick. We got to do a better job here. And the fact that there were a lot of people on this call, a lot of people talking about, what's going on in the State House. I know our local delegation in Western Massachusetts is very much into this. But the fact that people are not giving up, that they're still fighting for this stuff, understand that we're hitting some bumps in the road right now. but very much committed to getting to that goal, however long it takes. So I love the spirit of not giving up. I felt good after that call.
U.S. Congressman from the 2nd Congressional District of Massachusetts joins us each Thursday for McGoverning with McGovern. If you got a question for the Congressman, you can send it to me, thefab413@nepm.org, and I'll ask it. I'll see you Saturday night, Congressman.
All right, look forward to it. All the best.
Curious about making your own podcast or documentary or more? We'll show you how Amherst Media is helping to bring some of the community's recording and film dreams come true as we take a tour and hear about their gala this Saturday.
But first, a look at love, belonging, movement, and masculinity as we speak with the folks making Rowdies in Love come to life at Jacob's Pillow in Beckett this weekend.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by the UMass 5 College Credit Union, dedicated to creating access to financial well-being for local people, businesses, and communities. Insured by NCUA, umass5.coop. The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Northeast Solar in Hatfield, dedicated to custom solar installations, electric vehicle charging solutions, and reliable long-term system support. northeast-solar.com.
Welcome back to the Fabulous 413. Rowdies in Love is a rousing, vital dance work choreographed by 2024 Guggenheim Fellow, National Dance Project Production Grant, and Pillow Lab residency recipient Hari Krishnan. Set to a global soundscape by UK-based award-winning composer Neeraj Chagh.
8 male dancers blaze through an inspired, inventive movement vocabulary, radicalizing Bharatanatyam.
You could just say Indian dance. It's totally fine.
Oh.
But we want to learn. How do you say it?
Okay. Ba,
Ba,
ra,
Ra,
ta,
ta,
na,
na,
ti,
Ti,
yam.
tiam.
Natyam.
Bharatanatyam.
Bharatanatyam.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Radicalizing Bharatanatyam and contemporary dance from global perspective. Rowdies in Love explores the beauty of technical vigor and the power of connection, burning through cliches and shedding archaic cultural stereotypes to reveal the fullest spectrum of masculinity in cross-cultural dance.
This incredible work is coming to Jacob's Pillow's Doris Duke Theater May 1st through 3rd as part of their inaugural spring season. And with us to talk about the performance are choreographer Hari Krishnan, as well as dancers Spencer Stroud and Yuri German. Thank you all so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
This is so cool in no small part because you're part of the inaugural cohort of programming for Jacob's Pillow in the spring. And it's not lost on me that, Jacob's Pillow was founded by Ted Shawn as a place for his male dance company to perform. And here is a piece that is groundbreaking and is all men again, or at least 8 masculine forms. Talk about that connection and that tie to history in bringing this work to Jacob's Pillow, Hari.
So I've always been in absolute admiration of Jacob's Pillow ever since I was a young boy, knowing about the hallowed legacy of its founder, Ted Shawn. Not so much the legacy of the company and its artistry in terms of the men dancers, but the legacy of bringing the entire world into the Jacob's Pillow in this little space called Berkshires in Beckett, Massachusetts. So my entry point to Jacob's Pillow was also understanding the diversity of a very, very hopeful America, which I hope will come back soon. So that was my entry point and understanding the hallowed legacy. When I became a dance student, of course, I became much more informed of the history of dance and the kind of amazing interventions Ted Shawn implemented with regards to male dancers. So this work, in essence, Rowdies in Love, is not only a love letter to Ted Shawn from the future, it's also a love letter to the legacy of the Jacob's Pillow. It's also a love letter to global diversity and a love letter to my reaffirmation to what America has been about, and I hope will continue to be about.
You're based in the U.S. You were born in Singapore. You're of Indian descent, and this is sort of an Indian classical dance reinterpretation. But what are rowdies? We did talk about this when we introduced the spring series here at Jacob's Pillow, but for those who may have missed that conversation, tell us what rowdies are and why your rowdies are in love.
There are two disparate, seemingly disparate emotions, being rowdy and being in love. Sometimes they don't connect, but in this work they do. And I think Rowdy's in Love is basically an extension of one's humanity in terms of the complexity of who we are as humans and the kinds of wild desires we exhibit and the kind of hopeless romantics some of us are. So this work sort of sublimates all those contrasting emotions together in a singular, complex work. But I do want to stress that this is not an Indian dance work. This is a contemporary dance work which uses Indian dance as a kind of important springboard. But I've reimagined the potentiality of this form to harness the rigorous complexity, the percussiveness, the musical rhythmic quality to extend possibilities in terms of how else one can encounter American contemporary dance. That's why in this work, I specifically decided to work with kick-ass contemporary dancers based out of New York City.
Well, one of those kick-ass contemporary dancers is Yuri German. Tell us about what you bring to Rowdy's in Love as one of the rowdies, I suppose.
Yes.
And how it differs from other productions that you've been in. Your CV spans the gamut of ballet and other things as well, a Fulbright scholar and more. Tell us about what is new and different about this, Yuri.
Yeah, so I've actually known Hari for quite a while now. I went to Wesleyan along with Spencer, and Hari was actually my thesis advisor. And so there's a lot of sort of social emotional connection that I have to his work and his art. I really am an admirer of his work and feel so honored to be a part of this piece. It's very interesting because while at Wesleyan, I never took Bharatanatyam, so I myself don't even have like training in classical Indian dance. But I think the one sort of sentence that I always hearken back to that Hari told me when he sort of asked me to come onto this work and be sort of like a pseudo rehearsal director, dance captain person for him was that he was interested in the fact that I was really passionate and rigorous about technique, because really all that he was bringing from the traditional Bharatanatyam classical Indian dance work was a technical rigor that undergirds a lot of what the work really is about. And so I bring to the work, both in my character and both in my position, like a rigor to the intricacy. It's very architecturally driven. It is very driven by hand gestures. It's driven by intricate relational positions. It's moved by a lot of like shapes. I think that my own position in this is very much focused in on the like rigor and the aesthetic of the work. And I was joking with Hari the other day that I'm like, to a fault, a perfectionist, which is actually an asset in this work, and is one of the things that I think I bring into it, but also tons of my own sort of social emotional history. My dance thesis at Wesleyan had a big chapter dedicated to Ted Shawn, and so I'm very sort of invested in the history of Jacob Pillow and his own disruptive work back in the early 1900s. And I'm really interested in the disruptive work that Hari is now doing.
That's Yuri German, who will be dancing as part of Rowdy's in Love at the inaugural Spring Festival of Jacob's Pillow, May 1st through 3rd.
Spencer, did you have connection to Indian classical dance before performing in this particular work?
So, as Yuri said, I also was a student of Hari at Wesleyan, and I actually did take Bharatanatyam 1 and 3 at Wesleyan. So I did have some connection to the form.
One other thing that you have a connection to, Spencer, is neuroscience and dance, and I think that is fascinating. I see that you've brought some of this to research at Boston Children's Hospital. This may or may not pertain specifically to Rowdy's in Love, but maybe it does. Can you tell us what some of those connections are that might, the entry-level first day of 101 neuroscience and dance people might find fascinating?
My connection to neuroscience and dance is really about understanding why I dance personally and, its social effect at large. And I think the thread there to Hari and meeting him when I was 18 at Wesleyan is like also really trying to figure out why I dance. Being in process with him since I was 18 and now into my career in New York City, that is becoming clearer and clearer. And I think, it is through that investment within technical rigor that Yuri just described, but also this sense of rowdiness that we sort of coalesce around. All of these kind of disparate interests and kind of interdisciplinary angles that I've really cultivated since Wesleyan is really about understanding why I have this conviction to move and to move with others and its effect on people that watch.
That's Spencer Stroud. We're also joined by dancer Yuri German and the choreographer behind Rowdy's in Love, Hari Krishnan.
Hari Krishnan, can we talk a little bit about this score? Because it's a fascinating piece of music that you had to work with, in the middle of which is...
Yeah, which was a big surprise and a delight for me, to be perfectly honest. The cowboy hats come out, and so does the...
But the movement stays very strictly in a way that I definitely associate with Indian classical dance. But talk about this score. I don't want to get too much into more of the particulars because I feel like I'll be giving way too much away.
But you gave the main game away. Thanks for nothing, you guys.
We'll bleep it out and then we'll mention like
maybe we'll bleep it out and not say what it is.
But it's not as you know it. It's going to be a spin, a reimagination of that, in all praise to Queen via other parts of the world. So the composer Neeraj Chagg is someone I've been working since 2006. I knew him when he was 26 years old, actually. He's a kind of a boy genius, coming from UK, born and raised there, very, very much mirroring my own diasporic experiences, being brown and having grown up in the West and making art there. So he brings a confluence of different sensibilities into the work, and he's a kind of technological electronic genius. In addition to having a skill set about global soundscapes and Indian music, Indian folk music, Indian classical music. So just like the diversity in the choreography, Neeraj, as I always say, tongue-in-cheek, understands my choreographic schizophrenia. And he mirrors it with the kind of sound he gives, conflating so many disparate influences. So he understands the need and my sort of restlessness to create newness with the dance. So he creates newness with the music, which has so many different cultural influences, but has a distinct, edgy, contemporary thread that binds this. In addition to that, I'm making my work in America. How can I not reference my Americana live-like sensibilities? And when you mentioned it's such a controversial piece of music. And when the video came out, there were so many different commentaries about that in terms of who gets to co-op the Western. So I was interested in how do you parody that in terms of my own diversity as someone brown, someone Indian, and someone who lives and makes art in the US. So I was interested in how I can turn it on its head. And all of my work for the past 25 years has always been questioning the status quo and always turning this kind of cliche and stereotype on its head, subverting it, disrupting it, laughing at it, and hopefully finding beauty and joy in it.
One of the things I loved about Rowdy's in Love, because there is a video that we had access to, so we've gotten both to see it, is that it feels at the same time both martial and sensual. That there's what feels like a war scene, and I study martial arts, and I always call it murder ballet because there are many parallels between martial arts movements and dance movements, and this one gets not only explicitly martial and then sensual, but also queer. So can you talk about bringing that element into this?
Especially because
Sure.
I feel like there was like this Western Eastern almost break between the way that those two interacted.
Yeah, so I'm trying to create a third space. So not so much quote unquote Eastern Western, like you said, and not dance a representative from global South and global North. I'm interested in this kind of third space, this kind of ambiguous space where everything lives and everything is reimagined and everything new is recontextualized and dismantled. So part of that rigor you're talking about is very much encapsulated in the title, Rowdy's in Love, where the sensual can coexist beautifully with the complex and with the kind of movement rigor. As my dancers always describe, the work is rowdy, yes, but it's insanely difficult to do. And I'm going to stop there now, but I would love Yuri or Spencer or both to talk about their take in terms of performing this complex piece.
Let's start with you, Yuri.
Yeah, it like Hari said, it's incredibly difficult to perform. It surely is a doozy. Honestly, from the moment it starts, as you've seen, and I will not ruin for people, it's difficult from the very beginning. It's very unrelenting as a dancer. The positions that we have to hold, the very intricate gesture and movement quality that we have to harness for the beginning of the work is like unforgiving. And then as the work moves on, there is this sort of, I love this idea of a third space that Hari has now just mentioned, where it's not there's masculine and there's feminine. They're both kind of living in the same realm, even though you're seeing one thing sort of come out at the beginning of the piece, but the feminine is really underneath it all the time. There's always something about to burst over. We're always at the edge of something happening. We always joke that the last section, quote unquote section, because it's all one word, is 4 minutes long. It feels like 40 minutes because it is so physically difficult to do. You're already very exhausted.
Yes.
But it is the moment for all of us to like there's so many moments where we hone in, and I think the relational quality between the dancers is really the thing that keeps us afloat.
Do you have anything to add to that, dancer Spencer Stroud?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the most difficult things about the piece is the energy investment, specifically at these kind of event boundaries, between these sections, and especially when there are stark shifts between them, when we're working more in the angular versus the softer moments, like not having that sharp energy cut through. The segmentations of the scenes are really central to the work, and then the bleeding, as Yuri was describing, is also important. So again, like these stark shifts in energy investment is probably one of the most difficult things I've had to do.
I'm going to make you dig into that just a little bit more, because I did have a question that I'm going to pose to all three of you, but we're going to start with you, Spencer, because you brought this up initially.
Okay.
But there is this really interesting way that this work portrays isolation, individuality, and intimacy, and how it blends those three ideas together over the course of these 50-something minutes. Like, this is, you mentioned, it's intense. This is an intense piece. But, like, talk about the connection you have with the other dancers on stage within that framework of those three ideals, because everybody's got a moment to break out. Everybody has a moment to connect with each other. And then the ways that intimacy gets portrayed in this work, I think, were really, really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, there is a real narrative arc that takes us through all of these sections. There is a genesis that happens really early on in the work that we've cultivated over a really, really long time. And it's also really emblematic of our relationships. I think that's such a gift to be in a work that provides you with, beautiful lifelong friendships.
Do you want to add to that, Yuri?
Yeah, aside from like the technical rigor, one of the other elements that really undergirds this whole work is the relationships that we have to one another as dancers and as people. Hari did not set out to make a work that had a narrative in it, and yet something emerged out of it because of the simple fact that Hari is really interested in us as individuals. He's interested in our stories. He's interested in our, our own experiences with love and being in love, which inherently, like, love and being in love inherently requires the self and an other. And so there's this already inherent, like, third space that exists between people that is really the thing that is this constant sort of glue that is being stretched and being pulled and coming together and bringing different folks together. There's so many moments throughout the work that are almost like foreshadowing something to come, but there is something in it that, like, is also inherently very queer about the way that exists, because it's inherently very subversive. It also exists, again, sort of at the edges. There's never really adhered to categories or ideas, but you're sort of trying to flow through all of them as much as you can, because it's really about the process for us. There is a really important need to tune in to each other, because really the work doesn't come alive unless we're all there, we're all present, and we're all fully poured into it energetically, physically, corporally, metaphysically, all of the things. So it really does require a lot of us, and it requires us to sort of stay on our toes, because every minute is changing and every performance is a different performance for us.
How did they do, Hari? I know they were part of the creation of this, but did they get the essence of what you're trying to convey through the choreography of Rowdy's in Love?
Yes, and then some. But basically, I was really interested, forget underlying these amazing kick-ass dancers with such brilliant technique. The superlative technique doesn't mean anything to me if I'm not interested in them as human beings, in terms of their quirkiness, the way they manifest beauty, humor, anger, in terms of all kinds of complexities. Many of the partnerships, many of the duets came out of my observation of them as people during the residency in 2024 at the Jacob's Pillow Dance Festival. What the audience is going to see on May 1st to the 3rd is how those friendships turned into these kind of choreographic diamonds. Yeah, I was also interested. One of the single questions I wanted to ask in this work as a kind of initial springboard is what makes you fall in love, not knowing what the answers. I still don't know what the answers are, but using this as a kind of investigative choreographic lab. The dancer's investment in the work, the choreographer is only as good as the dancers. We collaborate together and we make this Rowdies in Love universe together. And this universe has so many nooks and crannies, so many sunken holes, and so many smooth pavements, and so many yellow brick road possibilities.
That's a perfect description.
I love it.
I do too.
I'm curious, Hari, about your prop choice in this piece too, because not every work has props, but this work does. And I think that they're very unique and very important.
Yeah, so when I think about love, obviously you think about the color red, you think about passion, you think about roses. So that was a kind of a no-brainer for me. But the use of the chair, which is an important character in the piece, came out of the choreographic residency at the Jacob's Pillow, where I was trying to choreograph intimacy between two individuals. And we had these chairs in the dance studio, in the Pearls dance studio. And I used the chair as a kind of maneuvering technique in terms of displacing their roundedness onto the dance floor to create different levels. But lo and behold, what I saw was, oh my God, this is a choreographic portal. And I discovered many, many possibilities in terms of how the chair, when carefully harnessed, can be an amazing tool to solidify the intimacy and more. So what came out of accident became a pleasant surprise and hopefully a transformative act on May 1st to the 3rd.
You can see it on May 1st through 3rd at Jacob's Pillow in Beckett, Massachusetts as part of their inaugural spring series. It is called Rowdies in Love, and we have been joined by the choreographer Hari Krishnan as well as dancers Spencer Stroud and Yuri German. It's a beautiful piece. It's an important piece, and I thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah, we really
Thank you very much.
appreciate it.
And hope to meet you in person
Spread
at the
the
show.
word.
And Jacob's Pillow has just made announcements about the Summer Festival as well, so head to their website not just for tickets to Rowdies in Love, but to see who is coming to Beckett in the coming months as well.
But now a glimpse into the oldest continuously operating public access station in the nation, which just so happens to be next door to the UMass campus in Amherst. A tour of Amherst Media is next on the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM. We are at Amherst Media, which is also the home of the Jones Library right now, the temporary home of the Jones Library. We did a segment about the remodeling and the reopening soon to be of that wonderful library. But
we all wrote our names on the beam.
But this is, I just poked around the library a little bit before I came in here. It's really cool. It looks like a really cute little library. I didn't know what the satellite place was going to look like, but I'm really good about it. But it's the more permanent home of Amherst Media.
I'm Rachel Figueroa-Smith. I'm the executive director of Amherst Media.
I'm Andrew Hart. I'm a board member.
Jennifer Shao, president of the board.
Amherst Media is public access media for Amherst and has been a vital part of Amherst's democracy for a long time. In conjunction with that, there will be an award and a gala this Saturday on campus at UMass. And I, full disclosure, I'm emceeing the event.
Hey, look at you.
But we thought it would be fun to come and check out to see what you do, where you do it. So what do you want to show us?
We super love invading other people's workspaces.
Yeah, right?
We love having you here. We're going to walk you through and show you around, including some of our members who are working while we're here. We're going to start in the noisy room. We call this the brain of the operation. This is where live TV happens. Amherst Media is home to 3 live TV stations that run 24 hours a day, public, education, government. We play town meetings, school committee meetings, other meetings that are important to town, but we also play lots of other things, which I'll talk about as we walk through.
What's on right now?
Right now, there's a town council meeting. There is some old music playing. And
It looks like a 1940s orchestra.
We've been going through the archives because Amherst Media is celebrating our 50th year.
Whoa, cool. So you're playing stuff from your own archives?
Exactly.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
It looks like Golden Age of Film kind of stuff, not like Golden Age of Amherst
No,
Media.
I was trying to peg what movie it was that was maybe in public domain at this point, but I couldn't place what musical thing it would have been from, so I'm glad.
Public access domain.
And there's a video of Amherst Survival Center. So a lot of the work Amherst Media does is showcase amazing things happening in our very own town, like the work Amherst Survival Center does every day.
Great. And it's a noisy room because there's all sorts of equipment whirring and buzzing in there.
Servers make a lot of noise.
Yeah.
This is our lab. We have, when we're at full capacity, we have 6 screens going. People can edit, create all sorts of things. We have one community member working here named George who's editing a podcast and show that he creates weekly. How often is your show?
Bi-weekly.
Bi-weekly, thank you.
Does that mean every other week or twice a week? I can never remember which bi-weekly.
Every other week in the spring and the fall.
Okay. Every other week in the spring and the fall. Fortnightly. I like that even better.
That's what this room is for.
And so people can just come if they want to put together their own podcast or their own, like this, there's a video element to this as well, and learn how to use the gear. Are they trained by people that work here? Or
they are trained by people who work here. We have 3 staff, and we have amazing board members like this guy here who can jump in and teach people how to use Adobe Premiere, how to use cameras, how to rent material, how to actually use the podcast room, and make your stuff. Once people are ready to do it, we can put everything on our live TV.
It's living the Wayne's World dream. What's happening in here?
I'm Brooklyn.
Hello, Brooklyn.
I'm the Community Education Manager here at Amherst Media.
What are you working on right now?
At this second, I'm sending out lines to encourage people to consider our video journalism course this summer, in which youth participants will have a director role in telling the community what matters.
Well, does that happen every summer, or how long has that been happening?
This will be the first of its kind.
Oh, cool!
Yeah, it's called Local Media Matters, video journalism.
That's great. Are people signed up already? And if so, are they college age or what kind of group of people are you courting?
Well, it is a work in progress and we're seeking teens.
Middle and high schoolers who are interested in things happening locally. This is an amazing opportunity to learn how to use a camera, learn about issues happening here in town, and create something, and we can put it on live TV for the community to see and hear.
Do they work with an active journalist?
They will work with our active team, so with Brooklyn and with other folks from around town that we're getting involved who really know the local issues.
Do you know what you'll be covering already?
One of the topics is Amherst Town Council's decision to hold ICE agents accountable. And the other broadly will pertain to issues of equity and justice in the high school. We have some interests there, but we think it's important to let the kids go where they will. The young people, I should say.
Why don't we say kids? Is it insulting? I love saying kids. I call grown-ups kids all the time.
I call grown-up kids all the time. Kids and kiddo.
I often leave a building of all over 40-year-olds and say, see you next time, kids.
There's a gap where I think you can't say kids in between like 14 and 21.
Okay, noted.
I can't call my partner kiddo.
Oh, here's all the gear.
Here's the gear.
Equipment cage. So podcasting equipment, cabling, cameras, broadcast quality cameras, just about everything you would need to make a TV show, make a film.
That's an important thing, too. You could, if you are a filmmaker and you don't have the gear, Amherst Media might have the gear, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
And everything is available for free, just like a library.
Which happens to be in the building right now.
Exactly. One of the greatest things about being neighbors with Jones Library is that people who are here and used to coming in and out for books and media and resources like that now will come knock on our door and ask if we have something or if we have a computer or whatever, and we have all of it. So we are excited to be able to share more of that. But yes, we have lots and lots of equipment. It's like a little bit of a gold mine for media nerds who want to do more.
Nice. How often do you run training for people to use this?
We're really gearing up our education offering, so we're moving to a place where we're offering once a month workshops and hoping to grow to even more than that. And as individuals come in, they get a lot of one-on-one attention.
So if you want to use it, do you have to go through the training or do you have to,
Yeah, you have to go through a training, which sometimes is a 20-minute one-on-one with our director of production or 15 minutes with a community education manager if you already have some groundwork. But if you have no idea and you're just coming in fresh, we'll ask you to come to a training.
And it could also mean learning how to use your phone camera better.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
We had one of those when we started this job.
One of those trainings,
I'm not sure I retained that information.
I retained a lot of it, actually.
This is the podcast studio. This is the most used room in the house besides the lab.
How many podcasts are being recorded here?
Oh, 30 a week, something like that. A lot.
Week?
Yeah.
That's definitely our growth, right? That's where we're exploding.
This is where we're exploding. Lots and lots of people come in and out of here to record just incredible things. So we have a former board member who comes in every Tuesday night. He's here till forever, till midnight some nights, doing all sorts of amazing work. He plays hip hop and then records learning about the history of hip hop. We have an incredible Iranian woman who records in several native tongues and talks about issues going on in her home country. She used to work for the UN. She just incredible stories. Amherst is home to thousands of people who have incredible stories to tell. So we love bringing them in here and getting them to tell their stories. And over February break, one of our first education workshops for young people was we had a middle school age workshop where they learned about how to record an audiobook and critiqued AI through their process.
Wow.
Yeah. We support folks in learning how to do it themselves. That's really the goal here. So our staff work with people one-on-one for their first however many times they need. Sometimes that's just once. For lots of people, it's the first 6 or so times. And then we're here. So right before you walked in, Andrew was helping out George over there on the computers with figuring out some, I don't know exactly what it was, but something on Adobe to work through the kinks of what they're working on. And it's similar in here where we're kind of available and on hand to help people work through the kinks. But our goal is that folks learn that media is accessible and in their hands and they can do this on their own.
Can you talk about how popular or not popular the video element of podcasts has become for Amherst Media and like the people who are coming in here to do that work?
It's an increasing question. So behind that curtain there, we can flip a switchboard on and this can be live TV. And more people are interested in that. So we have about once a week, we have one of our staff members who does a League of Women Voters League Talks podcast. And as he's getting more interesting known people on, he wants to do those shows live. There are folks across the country talking about the history of voting, all sorts of interesting stuff. I think historically when this podcast room first opened, that was not the vision, that it was just going to be audio was the vision. And as people are sitting in, it's an interesting kind of 360 around media that people want access to both video and audio.
I would just say that I think that podcast apps per se are becoming places that are curated for conversation. So it's instead of just going to YouTube and having a giant, endless collection of stuff to watch and get constantly distracted, like the Apple Podcast app might become a place where you just go for conversations. Mm-hmm. That used to be called podcast eventually, but people still call them podcasts.
The way that public access media has historically been funded is through cable subscriptions. People have been cutting the cable and spending the exact same amount of money signing
Sometimes
up
more.
to all the streaming services, Paramount Plus and HBO Max or whatever they're calling themselves today, and Netflix and on and on and on and on. That must be hard for the bottom line of an organization like Amherst Media. I'm assuming that's why there's a gala this Saturday. But talk about some of the finances behind how this is working in our modern era.
Yeah. So Amherst Media has historically been almost exclusively reliant on cable TV money, exactly like you said. But more and more that money is going down, about 5 to 10% every single year. So we need our community members to invest in this work because this work is the work of the community. This work only exists through the community, by the community, like they say on NPR all the time. We are for, by, and of this community. So we're celebrating 50 years, and for 50 years, Amherst Media has been able to make it work through cable TV money and some other foundation kind of grants. But as we shift, and some of my expertise is in fundraising and development, what I know to be true is that community organizations like this will succeed and thrive as individuals donate as they're able, as much as they're able, and show up for places like this.
Jennifer, you're the president of the board here, so this is probably something that's very much on your mind.
Absolutely. This is a common misperception that people have about Amherst Media, and one that I used to have, which is that Amherst Media is a separate entity from the town of Amherst and town government, and in fact not funded by the town government. A lot of people think that the town pays Amherst Media to do the work that it does, but in fact the funding comes via the town but from Comcast. And the funding is based on the number of cable subscribers in Amherst, a number that is going down, as you said. And that has been our primary source of funding for many years. So when your primary source of funding is going down and the cost of everything else is going up, that's a precarious place to be in. So we're looking for ways to diversify our funding, and we're looking for community members and sponsors who appreciate the work and the value that Amherst Media provides to the community to step up and support this really important work that happens. I know I've talked with a lot of community members and especially parents of school-age children that just assume that Amherst Media is there and is always going to be there to broadcast town council and school committee meetings, but it's an organization that needs community support in order to survive and thrive.
It has historically, for 50 years now, been that for the town of Amherst, and Amherst is kind of, I think of, for better or for worse, an incubator of dialogue when it comes to our civic engagement.
Also, if you think that your public media station is funded by your town, just think about the fact that, like, their town meetings would be way better edited. They would not let those warts show if they were in control of the narrative there.
Yeah. It gives you an independence to cover whatever you want to cover.
Yeah, it's journalism at its most basic. It is just reporting back, word for word what is being said by the folks in charge. Yeah.
Those mayors would never let those get out.
That being said, are people paying to have you come and create programming? Is that another revenue source for Amherst?
Yeah, that is another revenue source. It's a less utilized revenue source, but it's one that's available. We have some incredible producers and media makers in this space, so it is a readily available opportunity. But yes, Amherst Media absolutely can be making all sorts of amazing things that will showcase the work that goes on in our town and beyond.
So, like, what would people hire Amherst Media to come cover and make something for?
Amherst Media could be hired to come make kind of commercials or documentaries for spaces. We are grounded in community, so we really want to be showcasing that first and foremost. But if somebody wanted to really cover a full documentary that was focused on something relevant to this town or around this town, that is absolutely something we could be hired to do. And some of the most amazing things that we get to do here is we bring along our director of production or whoever else on staff, and with him comes college interns and high school interns who are learning the ropes and then get to help and move faster than I've ever seen somebody move on an editor, but really get a lot of work done really quickly here.
When people come, you said 30 podcasts are recorded here every week. Are they paying for that, or is that free too?
They pay to be a member, which is a nominal fee. Right now it's $35 a year, and they have full access to our space. They are then in charge of doing what they want with how they get it out. So we're not paying for that kind of thing, but the only fee they're paying is that very low annual membership fee.
It's slightly less than $3 a month to have access to that whole closet, and it's full of gear.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. This Saturday on campus of UMass, there is the Amherst Media Gala, and you will be honoring Congressman Jim McGovern with the Gene Haggerty Award. Congressman McGovern's on our show every week, and maybe we'll talk about why you've honored him, but who's Gene Haggerty? Who's the award named after?
Gene Haggerty was a longtime Amherst activist, and we decided to name this Community Service Award after her to honor her and also to carry on her legacy of local activism. We're super excited about the event, which is actually going to be in the Campus Center Auditorium of UMass. So thank you to UMass for hosting us there. It's going to be a wonderful event. The event is always filled with community. You'll see a lot of people you know. You'll meet people you don't know. We're going to have musical acts as well as dancing. There's going to be a DJ, so getting onto the dance floor and dancing, and we're looking forward to honoring Congressman McGovern. Congressman McGovern has been a friend of community media for a long time. He's also doing some wonderful work in his position as congressman to protect our basic rights. He's been pushing back against ICE and trying to make things better for those of us who are trying to just exist in the current landscape that we're living in. So we were thrilled to be able to honor him.
Do you want me to roast him? Is that why I've been asked to MC this?
Yes, definitely. I want you to roast him.
We can talk about the script later.
You have to turn your accent up to like 110.
I love turning my Jim McGovern accent on.
I mean, I think one of the things that you said was Amherst is really a town known for conversation and for a place where dialogue begins.
Where only the H is silent?
Where only the H is silent. There we go.
That's what they say. I didn't come up with that. That's the oldest thing about Amherst going, yeah.
And I think really Congressman McGovern kind of embodies that this is the state, but particularly Amherst gets to be a place where dialogue is welcome and encouraged and opinions are part of the day-to-day. That's really what we're honoring in this 50th year and looking to another 50 years forward.
We are the oldest continuously running community media organization in the country.
Wow. Because this was birthed with cable, the concept, right?
Yeah.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, and it used to be like, you wear a backpack that would do the recording on reel-to-reel tape.
Yeah.
Like, it was crazy.
Oh my
Tubes
gosh.
coming out your head.
Content-wise, like we're public media. This is a public
Community
access.
media.
Community media. Thank you. Have mostly done sort of like documentary and very conversational work, but like, do you get community members who are doing things in like theater and fiction and like not necessarily the here and now that you see and interact with every day?
Younger folks, and especially I'd say in the community education work, which is really our youth work, that's where there's a little more creativity. So one of the 2 summer workshops we're doing is called Mysteries of the Forest. There's the one Brooklyn told you about, but the other one, they're going to be spending time in Amethyst Woods and creating stories with Indigenous storytellers that are really grounded in the trees around us. And so I am expecting some fiction and fantasy to show up, and that's definitely what we saw in February when they were here.
Does anybody attempt to do something that is akin to Wayne's World? Like a show that is just so weird and fun that is like, what is you think of stereotypically when you think of public access?
What people of a certain age.
Yeah.
What Gen Xers think of?
I'm Gen X. When I was growing up, there was a guy who would do I grew up outside of Philadelphia, who would do a talk show completely nude.
That's the other thing. I heard you could be nude on, because it's cable, that you could be nude on your public access television station. Can we be nude here?
No, I mean...
Can I be nude now? No, I'm just kidding.
I think you could be nude, but not
this?
lewd. I think you could be nude, but not lewd.
Nude, but not
right?
lewd?
Isn't that
Yeah,
right?
lewd is the word.
We're going to bring this into the gala.
Community media has similar boundaries to public media in terms of what's not allowed.
But it's cable, so...
But it's cable.
It's like Skinamax, but for Amherst.
Right.
This conversation is taking a weird turn.
You hired me to do the gala. You should have known what you signed up for.
It's a lot of discussion about nudity. It's not nudity, not actual nudity.
But we found, I would say, going through the archives, and that's one of the cool things that you'll get to see at the gala is little clips of what the archives here looked like. And going through the archives, we found some pretty incredible old stuff.
What's one of the coolest things that you've found so far going through that footage?
That's all you.
Man, I'm gonna blow it because I don't remember his. Is it Robert Evans, who was a poet at UMass?
Yeah.
There's a documentary that walks around and he gardens, and that's all it is, and it's old black and white video.
Wow.
Probably that with like the backpack, that kind of old school video, and it's touching. It's really neat. He recites poetry, and he talks about like being gentle in the garden. It's awesome.
Oh, that's cool.
Where do people get tickets to your gala?
Go to amherstmedia.org. That's going to be the easiest way to find us.
Well, I'm excited about Saturday.
Thank you. We're excited to have you.
Yeah. He won't be nude, we promise.
You can't promise that.
Nude but not lewd, please.
You can watch Amherst Media's offerings on channels 9, 12, and 15 while you're in the Amherst Township, and check out their website for ways to support them and tickets to this weekend's gala. On the next Fabulous 413 Double Music Friday, as we chat with Kurt Newman of the Bodines, who will perform on Sunday at the Hope Center in Springfield.
And live music Friday with polyglot Emily Wells and her string quartet friends, who'll join her on stage at the Shea Theater in Turner's Falls as Antenna Cloud Farm and Gill takes over the Shea this Saturday night.
And we were real curious if we were going to fit that whole quartet plus her into this room.
It'll
and we'll see.
all work out.
We'll see if it actually works. Plus, we'll get our hands in the dirt and check out the flowers starting to bloom at 16 Acres Garden Center in Springfield. I'm Khalees Smith.
I'm Monty Belmonte. We'll see you tomorrow on the Fabulous 413.
Woo!